So let's go to directory importer then, shall we? And look at what we can do there. So with the directory importer, what we actually do is we are able to connect to one Active Directory server, only one, or LDAP, and then we can download, we can synchronize users from that server with Trackit. So let's look at the different things. So we set up the directory server. We enter the address and, if necessary, the credentials to enter it, or if anonymous access is enabled, then we can just do that. We test the login and it says it's okay, that's a valid login. So once that's done, we can verify how many licenses we have, first of all, available and in use. So anything that is in red, of course, is allocated, and anything that is in green is still available. So we have a lot of self-service licenses available, and we have most of our technicians allocated, our technician licenses allocated, right? So we can go to the technicians and see, first of all, uh, what we have in terms of the licensing for the technicians, and then I remember this is connecting to the Active Directory. There's another way to add technicians. We can select add, and when we select add, we enter the Active Directory tree, and then we can see the various elements that are in there. See that we can not only select technicians, we could also potentially select other things such as computer groups or domain controllers, but obviously that's not going to do us any good. So what we can do is either select individual users or select groups, such as this JV Trackit group. Now this is for users, right? And I also created a group for text. So we have a group for Trackit text, and we have a group for Trackit users. And that was obviously created ahead of time in my Active Directory. So if you have that, then that's an easy way to manage the users that you want to include within Trackit, either as technicians or as standard end users. And depending on what you're selecting, whether they're technicians or end users, then you determine what kind of license is going to be assigned to them if you want to do so. So in this case, I could select the technicians, because that's what we're looking at right here. We're looking at technician users, and then I can determine whether I want by default to allocate a name license to those users, a concurrent license, or skip the allocation of license and simply import the users and then assign the license manually myself. So that's it for the technicians, and then for the end users is the same thing. We select add. By selecting add, we're connecting to the Active Directory, where we can select the group that we have created or individual users in our Active Directory. In this case, it would be the TI users group. And then we can either allocate a self-service license to those users or skip the allocation of licenses and do that manually one by one as I see fit. So whether you're going to do one or the other depends, on the one hand, on the number of users you have, and obviously the number of available licenses that you have. Sometimes you may want to have your users imported into Trackit, but not necessarily have them match with any particular licenses. So you can then manually decide which ones are going to be allocated. So that is my group of users in there, and that is my group of technicians. I have also selected an individual technician, as you can see. So every time, and we're going to be looking at the scheduler here, every time that the schedule synchronizes with the Active Directory, Trackit is going to look at that group of users or individual users that you have chosen and refresh the information with whatever has changed in there. And as you're going to see later on when we look at the user fields within Trackit, there are certain fields in the user section that will always be updated and overruled by whatever is in Active Directory, overwritten, I mean, by whatever is in the Active Directory. So if you make a manual change, which you can do in those fields, when Trackit next synchronizes with the Active Directory, that information that is in the Active Directory is going to overwrite whatever you have written manually in those fields. So keep that in mind. We're going to go over that point again as we go into the lookup tables for users. But just keep in mind that what you have selected in here is where Trackit is going to look to synchronize the user information. So once you have selected your technicians and users, then you select the field mapping, right? And you have here your end users and your technicians, and these are the available fields that you have in Trackit. So and these are the fields that you have available in your Active Directory or your LDAP. So you determine which elements of the LDAP or your Active Directory are going to feed the available fields in Trackit. So if you have something like this, which is an empty box because I haven't selected anything in there, then you can select the little drop down arrow in there to see what fields are available in Active Directory that you could use to match to your Trackit fields. So sometimes the information that is available in the Active Directory is a bit cryptic. So you need to make sure that you know what information is contained in those fields. So you may need to get your Active Directory administrator and have him or her on hand to do this task. Some of the fields are quite obvious and match they have the same name. For example, employee ID or mail obviously will match to email address. But there are some other fields, such as WBeam path that we may not know what it means, and you need to get the administrator to tell you what information is in there to see if there's an appropriate field in Trackit that matches. Then you can determine whether that's a linking field and whether that field is going to be mapped for users or technicians or both. Certain fields simply are not available in the users section. For example, comments or extension. You only have that available for the technicians. So if it's not available within the user section, or likewise if it's not available in the technician section, that box appears grayed out and you cannot click in there. Okay. So that's for the mapping of the fields, and then you have the automated schedule that is going to determine how often Trackit is going to go and try to synchronize with the Active Directory. So you can set that up so as it doesn't automatically import ever, and you can then import now to do manual imports, or run it once a day at a particular time of the day, or every so many minutes, whichever you determine. I have it set up to run once a day because that's plenty. You really don't need, unless you have an extremely active Directory where things are changing constantly, it's rare that you're going to have changes every single day. So that should be enough. Like in the email equivalent scheduler box, you can double click on any of the elements if you have an error, and then it's going to give you the information of that error. Obviously there's no errors in here, so there's nothing to see there, but it works the same way. So there you have it. That is the directory importer section. And do you have any questions about that?